Hey guys, Thomas Jr. here, aka Mustached Tom, here to review the movie Joker. So, this has a lot of going on before I can even touch the review, and I feel like I should talk about all of the big stuff beforehand. So, the first thing I heard, at least, about this movie is that it would have no connection to the rest of the DCEU movies, meaning no connection to Batman movies, and so on and so forth. And I thought, at first, that is a bit of a bizarre move, considering how interwoven the Joker story is with Batman. I felt like every iteration of Joker has made contact with Batman, so I did feel like that when that came out, that was a little bit of a mislead, I feel. And of course, the stupid that came after that, because I felt like there was, potential for that to happen at some point, and then they just rewrote it to, maybe connect in some certain areas. But more, the real actual stupid happened after that, where the certain articles came out about, how this movie is going to be the one to incite the violence in the youths that see this and say, oh, he's a troubled man, and he went down the bad path, and it's glorified violence, even though the violence is punished by being arrested, meaning it's not a good thing. The movie does not glorify killing if the end result is prison. I don't think that's how it works. I think people needed to actually use their brains, and, I think the movie kind of slaps the face of every article that came out about that. And after watching the movie, I decided I usually try to avoid it, but I wanted to see some of the reviews, and for the ones I've seen a lot of people say that, or some of them say that this Joker is a more realistic Joker, that he doesn't feel like he fits in with the rest of the DCEU, when you get a character like Batman and, the big guys, Aquaman, Justice League, the big dogs. And this sort of underestimation, honestly, after hearing those reviews, I honestly think that this might be the best interpretation of the Joker yet. And I know that is a hard conclusion to come by, but I stick by that. Honestly, I think hearing people say that they underestimate this Joker, that they think that he is incapable of being this threat, I think that's what makes him 10 times more of a threat. When you underestimate someone who doesn't have that will to live, yet he just wants to just live it out anyways and see how far things are going to go, I think that can lead to in a grounded world or with grounded characters, I think that can lead to the most dangerous type of people that come out of this. And again, that is something that is not glorified. It is something that this movie is saying we should try to actively avoid. We should try to actively avoid creating this type of archetype, this type of person. And it starts by looking at what we see. And I think that this movie couldn't have come out at a better time. A time where there is still a heavy divide within class, because this movie does heavily tackle, this class of, you see this Joker, or Arthur, as he's known as previously, who's like this simple clown just trying to get by, and he's starting out, and he's already sort of depressed and sad and stuff, and just not being happy and being treated like absolute shit. And, again, this is ultimately something, again, very class associated, very rich versus poor. And, you know, there are other stories where you hear, like, Thomas Wayne was, like, all this, like, you know, he was a dubious man, or, like, he tried his best, but it wasn't enough. There was something about it. And this movie, it's the first movie, I think, we actually get to see a little bit of who Thomas Wayne was. You know, spoiler alerts for ahead, obviously, they go down the very obvious route of the Waynes getting killed. Which, you know, I guess that isn't any big spoiler because we've seen that in every Batman incarnation. However, why I think it's important, more important in this movie than in the others, is that, again, we finally get to see a little bit of who Thomas Wayne was. Again, every time we've seen that character die, we really don't get to know a lot about what kind of character he was. And again, I feel like this movie is like the first that sort of gives him a little bit of character outside of, you know, potential comic and animated movies or stories go. So yeah, and this sort of societal thing I feel is very indicative of also YouTube. You know, bigger YouTubers versus smaller YouTubers, you know, I could establish it to that. That connection of, you know, the big guys not helping or not seeing the little people. That has been something that I've been saying for ever since I've joined this platform, feeling like my voice hasn't been heard, like it hasn't gotten out there. So a connection to this movie, I definitely feel it. It's definitely there, so there might be even a little bit of bias, but I do think that the representation is extremely solid. So we see pretty early on that he is seeing a psychiatrist, and that he's like on 7 different medications, which sounds ridiculous. But there might be some people out there that have to go through that level of like that many medications. So yeah, you know, he's trying to like make this kid laugh pretty early on in the movie. We see him, like talk to his mom and live with his mom and take care of her in their own way. And then we get his laugh, which again is a very, you know, type thing you have to get down with the Joker, is obviously get down that laugh, and I think he definitely nails it. Of sort of, it starts off as this, you know, innocent enough laughter, and then it kind of like makes you turn your head like, are you okay? Like, what are you laughing at? And that comes into effect later on. So afterwards, he goes to the pharmacy, and we see like more stuff, like his mom is like, you know, going back there and stuff like that. And there's like this really weird short scene of like super rats on the news. I think they could have cut that. I don't know. It just seemed like really bizarre for that to be there. Anyway, we learn pretty early on that his mom apparently works for Thomas Wayne, again, Bruce's father. And there's this host that he looks up to named Moray Franklin or something like that. And we see that pretty early on he has this envisionment of like what he would do if he was like called out from the audience, and we get like the scene of like everyone enjoying his style of comedy, and it's all in his head. So we know that there are some hallucinage baggage going on here as well. So the host calls him down, and then, you know, he kind of sees the Maury as like a father figure, because he doesn't have a dad that we know of in this movie. But he's brought back to reality. And then he goes to change, and we see just how messed up his body is, how skinny he is. Boy, oh boy. So, we see, again, earlier on, that his coworkers seem to be supporting him of, like, oh, you got beat up, here, let me help you out, let me give you a gun. Holy crap. You know, like, oof. So he's pretty incompetent with a gun, which again, I think a lot of people underestimate how scary that is. Like, you could just... I've heard stories of children grabbing guns and killing themselves. Like, holy fuck, is that terrifying. Of, like, not knowing how to use a gun. I think that's honestly scarier than knowing how to use a gun sometimes. Like, holy fuck. This movie is so good. It's so fucking good. I'm just gonna say it. It's the best DC movie out there right now. I think it is. I honestly think that this is the best DC movie out there right now. But, anyways, we move on. He goes to the office where he works. He works as, like, as we've seen in the beginning, is the sort of this clown sign person tossing the sign around. We see that in the trailers as well of him getting beaten up. So the boss calls him in, he wants a new sign, and he wants to take it out, the money out of author's money, and then he gets, he's like getting frustrated, tackling stuff outside. So he then sees this lady, we see him get home, a cut to home, of this lady and this son. I don't recall hearing what her name was in the movie. I think I missed it. Unfortunate, but seemingly he seems to have some interest with her. And then the boy's like irrelevant after that scene, so whatever. So yeah, he returns. He returns this gun bang motion to his head after the lady does it. That is like the first sign of like he wants to kill himself. Like, oh boy, we are talking about suicide. So obviously this movie is tackling a lot of deep stuff here. Doesn't get more like gripping than that if you're like talking about an individual struggle to like, and keeping it grounded. I think that's like the highest stakes you can get with an individual. And I could be wrong, but I feel it is currently. But again, let me know in the comments, I suppose, if there is one that is the higher stakes, again, to an individual. I guess, like, having, like, someone else in your life that's getting threatened, but then that would involve someone else, so you see what I mean. Anyway, so he's taking care of his mother some more, and he's trying to do right by her, trying to take care of her. And we hear pretty early on that the mom doesn't think that he's funny, and he's trying to do his best here. So he's messing with the gun. Like, holy crap, again, just like, what are you doing, guy? And he shoots the gun off in a random direction, and he tries to hide it off as like, oh, the TV, it was on. Haha, I wasn't watching porn. Oh, what? Oh, no, it wasn't this thing, it was that thing. Kind of that situation going on. So we see him start to follow this lady that he has an interest in. And again, he's like keeping his distance, but it's like, okay, where you going? Is this stalking? Probably. and then he does back down after she goes into this building. But then we cut to a comedian, and he's doing his rounds, and then Arthur's there, and he's laughing at when everyone else has stopped laughing, like he's off of the beat. Because the implication, I suppose, is that he heard the joke, and then he had to think about it longer than everyone else, and then he laughed at something else, and it seemed like he was laughing at what was just said instead of, laughing where everyone else laughed. It was, that could be down to interpretation, but that's what I got out of it anyways. So he's like writing down some of the guy's material, or trying to come up with some of his own, sort of a mixture bag, if you will. And then that lady comes up, and then she's like asking, like, "Oh, did you follow me?" And she's like, "Yeah." And they seem to get along at that point in time. So the Joker gets another gig at the hospital, and then he drops his gun in a hospital filled with kids. Again, that gun could have gone off in a hospital filled with kids. And people are underestimating that this Joker is not a good Joker. Like, holy crap, is this Joker like the scariest Joker? I know I'm gonna be pushing, consider this a hot take, but I think Heath Ledger's finally been, rest in peace and all of that, but I think his performance has finally been matched and surpassed here. Yes, I said surpassed. By one, Joaquin Phoenix. I hope I'm saying that right, but, anyways, so he's trying to make up this excuse of like, oh, the gun's just a prop, it's not a real gun, and then he gets fired because no one believes that. So he smashes his head in the glass, which, ow, and then he takes a train. So we cut to where the movie gets even more of like, oh boy, here we go. So we see these three, I guess, bully teen / older guys mocking this lady. They're like mocking her. It seems like they're going to start to move in on her like relatively soon. They don't seem to. Again, this is where things get a little bit like, okay, this is where the divide happens, obviously, of like where everyone is going to go. This is just really bad. But Joker had that laugh, and it's more of like he shows off earlier that it was a condition about this laugh, and I would agree to the extent of other reviews saying that is a interesting way of introducing the laugh. So the three of them are mocking him, or like they seem to like mess with him a little bit. They're like singing or something, or like one of them is singing, and then they just start beating him down, like attacking him, and he has the gun obviously still on him, and then he shoots two of them, and it's of self-defense. So this is where a lot of people go, okay, so self-defense, like, a lot of people are already on the fence a lot more about that now, about, like, what is considered self-defense. What is the extent of self-defense? He is being tackled and attacked by three people. He is outnumbered. I would consider this self-defense. The first two kills, anyway. And, you probably would still get prison in this day and age, but you probably would get, like, some sort of, like, I don't know, like, again, I don't know law, so I don't know how self-defense actually applies in law now. I'm not in tune where law is on where self-defense is, so I'll just say, in that moment, it was self-defense, but, well, whatever. However, the third guy did attack, so, and then he started, like, running. But then the Joker chases this guy down and he kills him, so it's very weird. That's where it's gonna go, like, okay, I suppose, I mean, he was running, so, you see, like, it's like, okay. Again, it's very, it just makes you go, That's the best response that I can think of, is just go, So, anyways, to relax himself, Joker goes into this dancing state where he's able to relax himself. And then he just goes home and then starts kissing on the lady that we've seen, and then she's like okay with it, I guess. But that comes into effect later on too, don't worry. So Joker leaves after the fact, and then we cut to him being fired and him going back to work to get his stuff, and then he blames the guy who gave him the gun in front of the other guys, and he's like, and then he beats the crap out of the clocking device, which, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people who can connect with that, just beat up that clock device, because bad. I don't know. Anyway. So we see that the murders have been unveiled on the news, and Thomas Wayne says that this is where, again, we see that divisive character of Thomas Wayne, and he says that, I don't know how they figured out it was a clown behind the mask, or there was a clown that was the one responsible. I guess there was just some person we didn't see seeing it and witnessed it and called it as it was, but whatever. Anyways, he's talking about on the news how this man was behind the mask, and you're afraid, and you're a coward if you hide behind a mask, essentially, is kind of where he goes. And then he says something that I feel like, again, kind of makes Thomas Wayne look like a little bit of a two-face, as he says the next part. He says those who don't make it are the ones he sees as clowns, meaning if you don't make money, you are a clown. That is essentially what he said. And again, to connect it to YouTube, I do feel like there is a bridge there that is very... I've seen it happen so many times here on YouTube already, of like, there's the big YouTuber, he's been up there for a while, an event happens on YouTube, and he goes, oh, you small YouTubers, you just need to work a little harder, aww. It's so... I feel that moment. It's so fucking good. That line is so intrinsic, and you can see it everywhere, and I want to make this review personal. I want to connect it to YouTube, because I see it here too. Of like, oh, you just need to work a little bit harder, and if you don't, you're not a real person. Like, Jesus Christ. Learn humility first. Like, learn to be human again after you make it big. So anyways, we cut back to Joker meeting up again with the psychiatrist. And she claims that this is going to be their last meeting. And this goes into, the whole he's on medication part. And the funding for medication being dwindled. Again, probably a very real, even probably to this day, problem. And again, you can connect it to other things that we have lost funding into the past. Teaching, school, education. we've lost funding to things like this before, and it's always led to things bad happening every single time. And we have still not moved past that. We are still falling for that trap every single time of we are cutting funding to the wrong thing. Bad thing happens. Oh, we shouldn't probably have cut funding to this very important, obvious thing. Oops. Our bad, big budget guys say. Our bad, oops. You know, that sort of mentality. So the Joker is no more meds for him. So he starts, it cuts to him getting ready for his first stand-up performance. He thinks that now he's off his meds, this is his chance to make his big impact. And as soon as he starts on the stage, he begins laughing. Even before he can even tell the joke. And people are just standing there. And it is probably one of the just like, ooh, okay. This is where things are getting a little bit like, oh boy. But we see that she, the girl who's there, is applauding for him. So there's that. And that it's probably the most like, okay, there's something going on with this girl. And we'll get to that, but I want to save it for when it actually obviously happens. So we'll get to it. So we cut to his mom, who needs more help. He's looking at his notes, and he picks up this note about Thomas Wayne and how he could be, and he kind of gets this notion that he could potentially, through his mom, be related to Thomas Wayne. That Thomas Wayne and the mom had some sort of affair or some sort of relationship, had Joker / Arthur, and then had Bruce later with another woman, obviously. So that is the thing that Joker / Arthur believes at this point in time after reading about such things. So he wants to try to get in touch with this Thomas Wayne, the rich, super Thomas Wayne. Excuse me. So he's honing in on it. He gets on the train, wants to meet with Thomas Wayne, and he sees young kid Bruce Wayne, and then he puts a little red nose on him, and he's like, or puts a red nose on himself. He's doing his little bit, like trying to entertain a young Bruce Wayne. He's just sort of standing there, kind of just like, whatever. He does like the smile thing to him, and then I suppose it's Alfred. I don't think they call him by Alfred, but I'm just gonna assume it is until proven otherwise. Comes out and says like, "Hey, I'm very responsible for Bruce. You need to get out of here." And then Arthur talks about like how he needs to speak with Thomas Wayne about the whole mother situation, and then he said Alfred says that the mother was sick, and this causes Joker to go off of the deep edge once more and grab and try to choke out Alfred, but then runs off after a bit. So he goes to his mom, and there are police there, and then he sees an ambulance, and then we see that the mom is like suffering from some sort of condition. And two detectives come over to him, and they're questioning him about, you know, the activities that have been going on, and they also think that the condition he has is a joke, and that is something that is very relevant today, of like, you know, people saying they have a condition, whatever that condition may be, and then saying, oh, that's, you know, you could just neglect that or whatever. Again, very relevant. This movie came out, again, I want to say this is one of those movies that came out at the perfect time. So he goes back to watching the TV host, and the TV host decides that he is going to play the comedy bit that the Joker did, or Arthur did, on when he did the whole laughing and then instead of telling jokes. And at first, Arthur seems like he's enjoying it, but then he hears how the TV host, I forget his name now, God, Murray, there you go, is now mocking that, saying how this is just some clown and saying stuff like that, whatever. So, Arthur arrives on the scene of, getting closer to this theater, and he manages to get on a bell uniform somehow. Whatever, that little part was like a little bit okay, like, how did he do that? And I think that was like the first indication of like, there's more to this Joker than I think a lot of people lead on in their reviews, because he got that out of nowhere, seemingly. Again, I do think that at first glance that it coming out of nowhere was a bit of an issue, but seeing how all the other reactors reacted in their reviews to this and saying how this Joker doesn't seem like he can't connect, and I think that that's exactly what makes him even scarier as a Joker, is that people underestimating him. Again, I think that what makes Joker menacing in the first place is that he is someone you would normally underestimate. Again, comparison to the one in the Dark Knight, he didn't have a lot of powers. I mean, I guess you could question his intelligence by comparison, but even the Joker in that movie outright admits that he says that he doesn't really have much of a plan, but he sort of plans things. Like, his mind is just going both ways at the same time in that movie, obviously. And I think that this is the first scene where we see that, of like, this Joker is doing it too. We just don't see how we got to that conclusion of like, oh, he just got a bell uniform. Like, what? How? Like, okay, this guy is really smart. He was able to get in, like, fucking no problem. So he sees that the Waynes are being escorted out to another area, and he has a gun on him still, obviously. So he sees Thomas Wayne using the bathroom. So Joker decides to confront Thomas about being adopted. And the father, Wayne, goes over how she was placed in Arkham, how she was crazy. And this clearly upsets him, Joker, or Arthur at this point. And I forget what line Arthur said, he just starts laughing at some point. Like, I forget what leads to the laugh, but he just starts laughing, and Thomas Wayne's like, you think this is funny? And he also picks up that Arthur was the one with, his son, Thomas Wayne, Wayne's proper son, Bruce. So, he's like, stay away from my son, and then he punches him. So, he, like, how he, sorry, my notes went bleh, so I do apologize. I want to make sure I'm getting all of this right. So, like, how he punched his head in the glass, now he wants to put himself inside a fridge and, like, make sure he freezes himself, like when he got pissed the last time proper. But then he gets a call from, like, some lady named Cheryl or something, calling him about booking from the host, Murray, to get on that show that he's very inspired by. And he says, okay, yeah, a chance to hit the big time, something that, I would want very desperately, like, big guy, big YouTuber, being like, hey, little guy, here's a chance to appear on my thing. Here you go. No one on YouTube does that, by the way, just pointing that out. Always gonna point that out. Always gonna point out hypocrisy when I see it. So, before he sets up to do that, he wants to do more info digging on his mom and figure out this whole scenario. So, he goes to the Arkham Hospital and he talks to the guard there about, like, his mom and then learning about that. And he decides to take the file for himself, which he wasn't supposed to do. But he doesn't get that far, but he manages to get away with it too. Again, he reads the papers and he goes over how he was abused as a kid. So now we get to even more weirdness of him entering the wrong apartment, and we hear that pretty quickly, and we hear him, we hear the woman that he's been seeing all this time, and she suddenly says, wait a minute, you're that guy from the apartment, why are you even here? Like, implying that he never met this woman before, that he was visualizing every encounter of, like, oh, she was there for me, creating this alternate story to what was actually happening. Which, again, this movie so brilliantly covers its weaknesses and turns its weaknesses into its greatest strengths. I think that's what makes this movie so good, is that, again, after hearing those reviews, after hearing the people I have heard say they don't think that this Joker is a very serious Joker. I've heard Angry Joe and their reviews say that. I also think that I think that was the first review I heard that one, and then but I thought, man, that actually that just makes him more terrifying. Like, you're letting this guy get away! If you're saying that, you understand that, right? The moment you underestimate a guy like Joker, that is when he becomes his most dangerous. Like, I don't think I can stress that enough. And I had to call out Angry Joe directly because I think that was the one I'm remembering the most, hearing that phrase of, like, oh, he's not very intimidating. Oh, he's very intimidating. Again, I would argue the most intimidating I think he's ever been in a movie. At least in the live action versions that we've seen. So, again, we're seeing all this abuse, and he enters, we get all that stuff. So he heads back to his room, and he's trying to cry, but then he ends up laughing again. And afterwards, he decides to visit his mom. And this is where he just unhinges completely. As if, because, the first thing is okay, arguably self-defense, right? The kids attacked him. He, he did shoot them. I suppose he could have tried something else before that, but, always argument to be made about whether or not when that you reach that point, but nonetheless, this is where you go, no. If you weren't saying yes before, you were saying no definitively. So, he's talking to his mom about how his entire life was a tragedy because he learned about the abuse, and now he embraces that his life has been a perfect comedy, which, if you know anything about comedy, it derives from tragedy. So that line is the perfect sentiment to what he's talking about. And then he proceeds to put the pillow on top of his mom and then kill her. So yeah, there's that. So we see that the TV is on. We see more of Murray doing his little thing. and he's watching these like little intros afterwards back at his place because he's like getting intrigued. He's getting ready for the show, the big show, and he's practicing with his gun again, doing the whole getting ready to gun himself on the neck up. And he starts to get the whole get-up down. He paints his face white. He dyes his hair green. He gets a fancy red coat and pants. And then the door buzzes, and the clown team that are two of the members that used to work with him decide to head over, and they're trying to say their condolences. And Joker, after not even that, I'm just gonna call him Joker now, because goddamn, Joker just flat out kills one of them. Like, this guy was just trying to talk to you, and then he just like stabs this guy. And the small guy, like actual small guy, like small, he's like freaking out, and he's trying to like get out, and he can't because he can't reach the door. And then the Joker just lets him go because he was the only person that understood, according to Joker. So he has the full costume and get up, and we see where all the memes came from of him dancing on the stairs. I've seen the memes, I've seen the tweets of the memes of him dancing with Peter Parker and haha, dancing together. And the police are just like looking at this guy like, hey Joker! And then Arthur, he's still Arthur, but he is Joker at this point. He just isn't referred to as Joker yet. So, he manages to lose the police by getting on the train where all these other clown protesters are, heading toward Wayne Manor, and so on and so forth. So he's able to get out and get ready to meet the host, and he's prepping, and he's doing all the stuff of like shaking it out, doing a little dance. And he meets with Murray right before the show, and that's when he says that he wants to be called a Joker because that is what Murray called him at some one of the earlier video callbacks. So nice introduction, fall through of that. So Joker comes out, and everyone's like, "Yeah, Joker, woo!" Kisses the lady, and everyone's like, oh, still enjoying the show. Pretty fun and entertaining. He's doing a good job. No one knows that he's this killer. He's done that he's managed to get away with it up until this point. So, Murray's like, okay, so what's your deal? You have this, you're this comedian, you did the laugh thing. Tell us a joke. So he takes out a book, and everyone's laughing. Everyone's having a good time. And he starts to tell this joke, and then he doesn't or he gets interrupted or something. And then, just out of, from an attack out of Titan power levels, he just says, "Oh, and I killed these people." And everyone goes, "Wait, what? Wait," that was some fucking Attack on Titan moment when the two Titan kids said that, "Oh, we're Titans. Yeah, we're these two Titans. Do you want to come with us?" Holy fuck, I killed I killed those kids. Yeah, that was me. And, the guy holding the camera's like, but the host is like, hold on, let's see how much information we can get out of this guy. He's confessing here live on television. Let him do his thing for right now. So Joker starts talking about Thomas Wayne, and how Thomas Wayne, he doesn't understand, and all of this stuff, and how he cast him away, not being related and all that stuff, and how he gets ready to tell this other joke, and now the host wants nothing more to do with it. He's like, okay, you need to stop, because the jokes are getting all like, oh, I killed these guys, haha, funny, right? Funny, right? Kind of like that. And then he takes out the gun and he kills the host. And I will say, as far as pacing was concerned, the one issue I have at this point is I actually do wish that the interview section of Joker and him having a back and forth, I wish that went a little bit longer. I wish there was a little bit more tension, a little bit more rise in the music of like, kind of like how they did in The Dark Knight when the Joker's in Bruce Wayne's house and you hear that very and it's rising up. You know, a lot of back and forth between Joker and the host. I feel like that moment could have lasted a little bit longer. Like, give that an extra 10 minutes. I feel like they could have really, like, gone back and forth for that long. Because he does kill the host. Like, he just pulls out a gun, bang, and everyone's like, oh my god! So the cameras are, you know, people are, like, running all over the place. Joker goes up to the camera, does his vintage, go up to the camera and talk to it, and then it cuts off. So we cut back to outside because we knew that there were already clowns coming in to like wreak havoc. So now we cut out to the outside and people are going nuts. This is the beginning of, arguably the beginning of Arkham City starting to lose its edge, starting to lose that humanity, starting to escape that everything of like, okay, first you were fighting for a purpose, you were rioting, and now you're just going all sorts of crazy. You're breaking all of the rules. You no caution to the wind. You know, you're taking it to that extreme, and that's where, you know, the movie says no. Again, it says no, no, stop, don't do that. It's bad. Again, we see Joker get his just due, or up to his just due almost, as he's put in a jail car. He's being placed under arrest. While he's being arrested, we see the Zorro play, which I do remember, and one of the other Batman movies or animated shows of them talking about how Thomas Wayne's last play that he saw was indeed a Zorro movie. I forget, or play, I should say. I forget which one that was. So yes, once again, we do see that, we see the Bruce family leave, we follow them, we see a clown inspired by the Joker to kill Bruce and the whole taking of the pearls, and, you know, it does, again, I don't know how much they do want to connect this to the DMCU now, because now they've done this at the end of the movie. So yeah, it is that again, and I don't know, I actually appreciate it much more now, oddly enough. I know we've seen it time and time and again, but I think the reason why I appreciated seeing it here is, one, it's Joker we're seeing it from, his, you know, this is his movie, and two, again, we are seeing Thomas Wayne as, again, we're seeing who he was a little bit more here. So I feel like that adds the cadence that it usually never has in any of the other movies. Like, it's like, oh, the parents are dead, but who were the parents? Like, we learn about who they are sometimes in the animated short, like, after the fact. And I feel like actually seeing a Thomas Wayne, actually seeing what he was like, paints a much more, like, struggled character than I think the animated show leans its cadence to, because, like, you know, Alfred embellishes Thomas Wayne, and that seems to be a very clear indication of, like, Thomas Wayne was embellished as, like, this great man, this great rich man who wanted to make a difference, and yeah, arguably he did, and arguably he was trying to make a difference, but to what extent, and what he was willing to let slip into that hypocrisy level, again, where people fall into hypocrisy. I think that is another theme this movie hits because of the Thomas Wayne being president of the movie, and because we see him die, but we get to see the hypocrisy that Thomas Wayne actually goes through in this movie, and that's, again, something we didn't see before, or, again, during his lifetime, because, again, it's usually after the fact. It's after he's passed. People embellishing who this person was based on what they know, and we are not seeing him. This is the first time we are seeing him as a character, and holy fuck, it's about fucking time. I'm arguing that we should have gotten this earlier. And am I the only one crazy enough saying that? I don't know, maybe. So yes, we do see that again and again. I do think it's necessary, because we get that build-up of who that character is finally. And Joker gets up from his, incident of an ambulance crashing into the cop car he was in. So the clowns get him out, and then, all the clowns are like, get up, and then he gets up and he does his dance, and everyone's like, woo, yeah, chaos, anarchy, and there's blood because of the accident, and he spreads the blood the obvious way on his mouth, on the lips, and then we cut right to Arkham, hard cut, you were stopped, you were placed in fucking Arkham, you didn't last long out there. And he's talking to this new psychologist lady, doesn't matter who she is, and he says, I thought of a joke, and the lady's like, well, what's the joke? And then he says something along the lines of, you will never understand the joke, as he thinks about what he has inspired. He thought about the death of Bruce and Martha Wayne. Even though he didn't directly see it, he kind of can, I think he can piece together that he probably would have inspired someone else to do it. I think that is easy enough to point out. And then we see blood tracks as he walks away, having a carefree last kill, and that was Joker. And you know what? For the first time in Mustached Tom history, I'm gonna give this movie a 10 out of 10. This is the best DC movie ever. It is. It is. I don't know. It beat out The Dark Knight. Holy fuck, does DC have to step up to the plate now? Birds of a Prey, you better be a fucking good follow-up, because this was perfection. Holy shit. Everything, every unexpected thing just makes this movie so much better. Every time people are gonna say, oh, this Joker isn't very serious, we shouldn't take him very seriously, that makes it more terrifying. That is what makes the Joker a true villain. When you underestimate your villain, you have a fucking villain, proper actual villain. You've successfully set this Joker up. Oh my god, did this movie knock it out of the park. Absolutely brilliant. Best praise I think I can give this movie. Again, perfect score, perfect time for me to do my first 10 out of 10. Movie of the year so far. Movie of 2019 so far. I think we have a contender for Movie of the Year. I think this should be nominated for an Oscar, honestly. Holy fuck. Did this movie have to go through so much bullshit? And it surpassed it all. It beat all of their expectation. It said, no, you're gonna sit here and you're gonna see, you're gonna witness it, and you're gonna see your own hypocrisy now. Because this movie is gonna call all of them out. All of them, if you didn't think it would. Reviewers who are saying, oh, this Joker, he's not gonna be a... No, that's what leads to the Joker! Do you understand? Holy fuck, is this guy dangerous. Most dangerous Joker to date. Brilliant performance, brilliant movie, well-paced. I would arguably give it a 9 out of 10 because of that one issue I mentioned earlier, but still, still top-notch. Holy shit. God damn, did this movie just beautiful. Holy hell, this is my movie of the year currently. Like, comment below, like what? God damn. My movie review for Joker, 10 out of 10. If you enjoyed this review, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. One to head over to my Discord server, the other to my Patreon page, and support it to prove all the naysayers wrong. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye.